hit that you agree that it's.
I got it.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So exciting to have you here.
Good evening.
One of the best things about Tzohar, as you know, is that it's never the same any year, because students aren't the same, questions aren't the same, and then things hit me anew. That's umitamida yeser mikulam. You learn more from your students and more from teaching than anything else. So the other thing that hits you is, like, I thought I've been in Tzohar for 10 years. And I thought any muscle that I could come up with, I came up with already, like it hit me already. Well, that's not the case, of course. Something new hit me this year that is just like startling to me. I don't know why I never thought about it before. It goes along with yesterday's Hayom Yom very much, that everything a chassid sees is a lesson in Avodas Hashem. And so everything I learned at Tzohar, as I've been there through the years, is a lesson that kind of makes something new. So I was teaching a sicha it's in Chelet Chaf Beis. It's a sicha from Parshas Emor about Sfiras HaOmer. And it talks about the idea that Sfiras HaOmer and Tefillah are unique. It goes through the idea that it's kind of like an odd type of thing, that the Alter Rebbe, when he set up his siddur, which was Nusach Ari, so you would think that he would have put the order of his tefillahs just like the Arizal did. And the siddur of the Arizal that we have, there's a certain order of the tefillahs, and the last final tefillahs are those of Shalosh Regalim. It ends with Sukkos and Simchas Torah, whereas the Alter Rebbe at the end of his siddur puts Sfiras HaOmer at the end. And so that's how the Rebbe kind of launches into the subject of what is Sfiras HaOmer, why would the Alter Rebbe do that, what's going on, what's going on with Sfiras HaOmer. And the Rebbe traces this connection between Sfiras HaOmer and Tefillah and says something that's really amazing, and it just hit me in a new way, and that your training at Tzohar actually trains you in a different way to relate to Tefillah. Okay, so here we go, because I think we all have trouble with that. I have trouble with davening. So this kind of gave me like a new perspective of what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm going to read a little piece of the Sikha, and then I'm going to take it, into sort of how to make this real. So the Rebbe talks about the idea that tefillah is different because most mitzvahs have an action to them, where there's a reality to the action. Tefillah, and we'll see Sfiras HaOmer also, which we're in the middle of, is going to be unique because it doesn't have an action that makes it, it has a kavanah that makes it. I'm going to read it to you inside, and then we'll parse it and discuss. Mitzvahs tells that b'chlal in Sfei Sugim. Mitzvahs divide into two general categories. Mitzvahs shebamaisa, there's mitzvahs that are through action. Tiyan asiya k'pshuta b'pel mamish, such as you did some type of action in real life. V'levishat tzitzis, hanachas tefillin v'chulu, like putting on tzitzis, putting on tefillin. Other b'dibur, or they sort of are generated through speech, which is maisa zutrasa. It's sort of like a smaller kind of action, because you are doing something. You're moving your lips. You're making the air different, because as the air comes out of your lips, there's something that's happening in order to create these sound waves. The Kriyas HaMegillah, Sipur B'Yitzit Mitzrayim Ketzibah, those examples of that would be reading the Megillah, or on the Seder night, telling over the story of going out of Mitzrayim. But Iker Kiyom Mitzvah is Pulas HaDibur VaKriya. There, the main idea is that you are causing some speech to happen and saying it out loud that's going to generate the mitzvah. When mitzvahs shel chayves halvaves, then there are the mitzvahs that have to do with what's going on inside of you, what's going on inside your heart. The avas Hashem, yiras Hashem, such as love of Hashem, awe of Hashem. But in Yanam is the kavan of a regesh adu b'machshav toy b'libay. There, what's the main thing? It's not an action that you're going to necessarily see in any real way. There, there's something going on inside your mind, inside your heart. Are you having that feeling of love for Hashem, or doing the things that will help you generate that love or generate that awe? And therefore, you can't look inside. There's no visible difference when you see somebody who's in a moment of loving Hashem or in a moment of apathetic about Hashem. You don't really see anything different. There's nothing that's generated there's nothing generated there other than something very internal. Mitzvah tefillah is miyuchad bazeh. So davening is distinct in the sense that as afal pi is tefillah muz zayin b'dibur dafka, even though you're speaking specifically, you've got to actually speak the tefillah. Is aber the ma'isa von mitzvah von tefillah, but the action that you're doing, she adam eschan mispal b'chol yom, der teichel eschan is avodah v'regesh b'lev adam nit asiya other dibur. Where davening is, you're creating a reality through speech, but on the other hand, it has to be filled with a sense of feeling on the inside. In other words, the intent, what you're creating something different in the real world, because you're going to be saying words, and you're doing that creation from the inside, but it will have something that you see on the outside. And then it says, just to be clear, that doesn't mean that other mitzvahs don't have an intent. When afal pi has become a mitzvah, is their din, as the mitzvah shel Torah shichas kavana, even though other mitzvahs also, you need to have an intent as you're doing the mitzvah. Where you're having an intent, I'm intending to do this mitzvah. And it could be if you're lacking that knowledge and that intent, you didn't fulfill your obligation. Is this nar an inyan fun kavanas ha-mitzvah? But there, it's you're doing an action and you're supposed to have a particular intention as you do the action. But it's not part of the mitzvah itself. It's you're doing an action, and then the mitzvah has to have an intent. So let's parse this. Let's take this outside of the words and figure out what we're saying here. Let's say you're lighting Shabbos candles, okay? So you have a flame, you have a candle. Now, I'm supposed to have an intent. There's a reason why I'm lighting this candle. This is not a just, oh, I'm looking for a certain mood, or I like lighting candles, or, lighting a candle like it's a scented candle and it's going to make the room smell better. There is Asher Kedishano B'mitzvah V'tzivanu. You say how Hashem commanded us to do this mitzvah. You light the candle, and you're having a kavanah, you're having an intent in your brain. But the action of the mitzvah, if you just light the candle and there's hardly any intent, you lit the candle, there's something there. The candle exists. With davening, it's amazing because you could be saying words, but if you don't have the kavanah, if you're not living it, if you're not creating the environment, then the whole davening didn't happen. And the new thing that came to my mind is, oh my gosh, Mrs. G has been talking about this forever. Davening is literally improv. What's happening when you come to improv? Like, think about it, right? Like, okay, what are the elements of improv? Somebody.
You're muted, Itoya.
Oh, I'm just repeating. I'm saying the elements of improv.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you have to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Like, you have to take yourself out of it in order to improv.
Okay. And so you have to have a who. You have to have the who you are.
Yeah.
Right? You have to have a what. And you have to have
where.
a where. Okay. That's what you got to do. Now, with davening, that is the essence of what you're trying to do. You're the who, and you, out of your mind, are creating a what and where. Meaning, there's no visible change. When you're doing improv and you're holding an ice cream cone, and the ice cream cone is actually like weighing your hand down a little bit. And if it's a quadruple scoop ice cream, like it's a quintuple scoop ice cream cone, you're not holding it up here because the things will fall off, right? You have to hold it like carefully, right? You're actually, you're creating an environment that doesn't exist. And from your head, you're present to that, and you're creating that environment. The environment is real to you. There's nothing there, but you are making the environment happen. And I suddenly realized that's what you're doing when you daven. You're talking with your lips for real. You're saying these words. You're davening, saying these words, but you mean to say these words to whom? To somebody, to an entity. Now, in improv, your senses are not actually sensing what you're doing. You're not your hands are not touching the ice cream cone. They're not feeling it. But in your mind, it's as if you're feeling it because you're holding it just like you'd hold an ice cream cone. When you daven, you're actually in the presence of Hashem. You're creating in your mind, wait a second, I'm in the presence of Hashem. And it's real. I mean, the difference with improv is the icing cone isn't real, ultimately. Okay? But davening is improv where you don't have to pretend it though. In other words, here you have to pretend you have an ice cream cone, but you create a reality of it in your brain, and it feels, and even the way it holds your arm down, and even it creates a reality for you that you don't sense. Now, that reality is not a true reality in the sense that the ice cream cone isn't actually there. With davening, the reality is there. Hashem is there. The Shekhinah is there. And you in your mind, as you're saying these words, are creating that reality for yourself. Otherwise, you're just shooting off words. It's not like lighting a Shabbos candle where whatever you have in your head, okay, but there is a Shabbos candle here. I can hold it, I can sense it, I can see it. With davening, you're doing all of it. You're making it happen. And that's why you have to be so present for it. Because even if my kavana comes in, comes out, comes in, comes out with the candle's still there. But when I'm just saying words, and I might as well be saying Chinese, the davening, it's not creating the environment. And in different parts of davening, I'm creating a different kind of environment, right? When I say from the beginning of brachos up until Psukei de Zimra, I'm creating an environment where I recognize there's Hashem. And then when I hit Psukei de Zimra, I'm in an environment where Hashem is creating everything, and everything is praising Hashem. The stars and and every creature. And then I hit the brachas of Shema and Shema, and I'm suddenly creating a unity. Oh my gosh, there's Hashem alone, only Hashem. And everything is really unified. It's not just a world and they all acknowledge Hashem. It's Hashem and there's a world. And then suddenly I'm in Shemona Esrei, and Hashem and I are partners together. I'm literally standing in front of Hashem as I'm saying Shemona Esrei. I'm standing exactly as I would in front of Hashem. I'm improving. If I could really sense Hashem right in front of me, what would I do? I would stand like that, and I would talk.
The difference is when other people watch.
Huh?
I said the difference is when people watch people do improv, they see nothing. But when Hashem watches you daven, he's seeing something. Like when you're davening, for you, it's improv because you're creating a whole surrounding. But then you remember that, like, Hashem is actually there. Like Hashem is actually watching you, and all of that actually exists. We just don't actually see it.
Right. Exactly. You're not
Can
sensing
I
it,
say
but
something? Sorry,
yeah,
Herman, I
please.
don't want to interrupt. So one thing that I wanted to say, I was told this from a teacher that, why doesn't everyone just daven in English, is that when you daven in English, that you have to have like really full, strong concentration when you daven. But when you daven with the Hebrew words have a power on its own. Even if you're not paying attention or you're not able to give the full, power of kavanah that davening truly deserves, that you're still able to tap into that.
Right. As long as at least you're talking to Hashem. You have to have at least that minimal kavanah that that you're talking to Hashem. In other words, you're doing an action, you're saying words, and you are talking to somebody. Just to do davening as reading practice, you're not talking to anybody. I just want to practice my reading, so I'll just practice reading. That's not davening. It has to be, there's an intent. Yeah, I'm talking to Hashem. So it's improv for me relative to, I think that, well expressed it's improv for me relative to the fact that my senses can't sense Hashem, but it's reality because Hashem senses that I'm actually going through that process, and Hashem's watching it really happen. So I think that's a very powerful idea.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, that's a really genius example. Because that can be so many ways. And then also just what occurred to me is that improv is so adaptable, and it's different for every single person, and you can do the same scene and the same 1,500 people can get the same exact scenario, and they can all do it differently, which is the same thing as davening. We all get the same exact text, but it's personalized to each one of us. Like, we can personalize it, and every single time we do it, we can do it differently. You can have the same scene holding the ice cream cone, and you can enunciate and choose which things to pronounce more and which things to focus on and how to do it. That's the same thing with davening. So it's such a smart example. And yeah, I'm gonna
because as I watched you guys do improv, you are completely present in creating whatever environment you think that improv requires. That's what's amazing. You know, if you just have a script, that's why davening is not supposed to just be a script. Because if you just have a script, you know that like when you've acted and you've done a scene, sometimes you could be thinking about, you know, paying your credit card bill, and you could still be saying your lines. Now, it's not very effective, right? I mean, the audience might sense it. You certainly sense it. You're like not dialed in, okay? But if you have no props whatsoever, see, that's what's beautiful about davening. If you have lines in a play, the lines in a play, usually you have the props. So you're because in a play, you typically are not making anything. You're saying lines, but you have the other person there. You have the other person you're saying stuff to. You have, in a play, you have the props. And those almost guide you. In a play, you wouldn't say to somebody, here's a candle, and then not have a candle. But in improv, you do. Okay, because you're making it happen. So the lines of davening are not supposed to be where we actually have the things we're talking about. We're creating the things that we're talking about. We're imagining the malachim praising Hashem and saying Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Like it's, but we don't see it, we don't sense it, but we're making it real to us. And of course, it is real. So that's the one benefit. The one benefit is I'm not creating something that's not real. I'm actually acknowledging something that is real. Now, so, obviously, when my experience of it is not quite the way it is, because, you know, if I imagine what it's like for Malachim to be in Yetzirah or in Bria, that's not exactly what it's like to be a Malach in Yetzirah or Bria. But on the other hand, that is a reality. I'm tuning into something that is a reality. And of course, like everything else, since I'm shaping it, I'm going to get a piece of it. I'm going to get a piece of what that is, or something that's, but then it's going to deeply affect me. In other words, that's the other thing about reading a script. If you read a script, you don't always have to put yourself into it as much. Like that was what was so difficult probably when you started improv. It takes tremendous mental energy.
But that's what's so fun about it.
Oh.
Fun for some and difficult for others.
I know.
I've been
very quiet about this, but improv was like the reason why I came to Tzohar. So I've been like chalishing quietly here. Oh my gosh. But no, davening is super hard. So I'm like questioning everything.
So you did it. Here's the thing. Davening gives you the chance to do it every day.
I know, but the thing is with improv, it's like you're present and it's exciting. But the thing is, you also have an audience when you do improv. When you do improv by yourself, people think you're crazy. And I think that's what's difficult with davening. When you do it by yourself in the middle of a train, you're like, oh, everyone's looking at me and everyone thinks I'm so from, blah, blah, blah. But then you're like in your bedroom and you're like, no one's watching me. Why should I daven? You know, I'll eat breakfast and then I'll daven. I'll go to work and then I'll daven. I'll go to sleep and then I'll daven, you know? Becomes a bigger battle.
And that itself is why you have to show up for the improv, because Hashem is watching, okay? But that is also maybe, I'm just thinking now, because you bring it up, you do this is sparking for me. Maybe that's part of the reason that there's another value in davening with others. But you could say, davening is a solo sport, right? It's your relationship with Hashem. So why do we do it together with other people?
Because we want our Yetzer Tovs to come together and our Yetzer Haras to leave each other, you know.
Okay, so when you're all improving in the same location, there's a power and energy of each of you creating that reality that actually creates a different reality. When a minyan comes together and each person is part of that, so then Hashem's presence is accessible in a different way.
Can I ask a question practically?
Sure.
So this is like a beautiful idea. Be the first to say that. The thing is that improv is generally, you know, real life scenarios, and it's you have to use your creativity, and it's different every single time, and it's relatable. And davening is the same text every time, and it's a lot harder to make it seem new and exciting and refreshing every single time, and to view it as, you know, improving and connecting with Hashem. Like how to practically do this, because like it's a very high level.
So I'll tell you what I think the process is. If you remember, what would Mrs. G do before she didn't just launch you straight into improv? What would she do first?
games. I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
She would do theater games. And what theater games would do is it would loosen you up and kind of give you a context to be able to lose yourself in that davening, in that improv process. So I have news for you. You know what those games are? That's called learning chassidus before davening. Learning chassidus before davening is actually coming and bringing to you Hashem is real. There's such a real thing as Hashem. There's such a real thing as Ruchnius. It actually exists. It exists at a level of reality that's even more than the existence I'm experiencing with my senses. And what I'm saying is that's why going to davening cold is like going into improv cold. For you to be able to have that presence of mind, to be able to really make it new, to really make it powerful, you first start with those theater games. You first have to get yourself into the mode of davening. And it's exactly what the Chacham talked about. If a person doesn't make their davening new every day, it's a problem. It was just in Pirkei Avos, right? It's, in other words, that's what we're supposed to do, to come to davening and make it a new experience that we didn't make it before. And part of that can be shaped by what your life is, okay? Because every day you're bringing yourself and your current life into that davening. So that helps. But also it's, what did you learn that's new in Chassidus that day? And that's what you daven with. That's the new theater game, or that's the new understanding, or that's the new reality that you've made some effort to comprehend. And then as you daven, you make it come out in reality, just like in improv.
And you're also taking your experiences of life to make something improv. Sometimes you obviously have to do make believe, but you have to use your seichel. You have to use your experiences. And with davening, as life goes on, you daven for different things. Your focus has become very, very different. Right.
So interestingly enough, Tzohar Seminary that we're in now has a similar aspect to it, in that, again, we are creating a reality. It's not like when you count Tzohar Seminary, you can say, oh my goodness, as you count Tzohar Seminary, there's something there. There's nothing there. You have to be acknowledging, oh my goodness, today I counted this day of the Omer, and as a result, it's I am counting, I am experiencing. And it's a very personal experience of a count. This is because it's not you're just counting along with the rest of the Jewish nation. If you go around the world to Australia and you go the way where you're not going to see as many sunrises and sunsets, and you do that a few times, you know that you have your personal Shavuos. Shavuos is not a date on a calendar. Shavuos is not the date when the rest of the Jewish people are celebrating. Shavuos is your personal experience of the count. You make a reality for yourself that after you have counted those 49 days, Hashem gives you personally the Torah. This is why, in Australia, for people who are like having Pesach in New York, and then they don't travel through Europe, they travel the other way around to Australia, they have to have Shavuos beyond everybody else's Shavuos. Because it's personal. Because you're creating the count, you're creating the personal Shavuos, and the personal giving of the Torah for yourself. So this is the unique thing of davening and of Tzohar Seminary, and the Rebbe continues in that sikha and says, and that's why the Alter Rebbe puts Tzohar Seminary at the end, because that's the ultimate. The ultimate is the creation of a new reality of our world. To see our world differently. Our world is not a place of problems. Our world is a place where Hashem is really here. And we are going to walk around with that as the way we see the world. And that takes work, and that takes effort, and that takes davening. And it takes making that a reality. But that's what we're here to do.
I want to say the crazy thing that I just processed is basically, okay, start with background. For the last 4 years, me and a group of people from Benos Homesh, from high school, we would learn Spira every single day together. So we would get together on Shabbos and everything. And now, since we're all kind of far from each other, we do it on Zoom every single morning. And it's like so crazy because every year you learn the Spira, and we do it with like the book, and we do read the exercise from the day, and we talk about it, and we focus on each thing. And I'm like, it's so crazy that like in reality, we're supposed to be doing not supposed to be, but like we could be doing all of these exercises, all of everything in every day, because we have all the spirits, like all the spirits are here in this world. And I'm like, oh, you have to work on it year after year, and you're reading the same thing, but every year it means something different. But davening is the same thing. Every day davening means something completely different, because every day you're a completely different person. So even if you're reading the same text, it's a completely different situation, a completely different focus, a completely different point of view that you're coming from. So in reality,
Right.
it's so
and more so
different
that
every day.
exactly, and it's more so than a candle, because this candle that you lit looks exactly in reality like the candle you lit last week. In fact, you probably used the same candlestick and this and a white candle. But that's because, yeah, those candles do look the same. They come out of the same box. They're standard. But davening every day is improving, where you actually create the reality of Hashem's existence in your life. And you go through this spiritual exercise, and every day it's going to look a little different, because there is no standard. It isn't like you can take it out of a box. You can't daven out of a box. You can't pull it out of the box.
Yeah, nothing in this life is ever the same, because every single day something is different. So
Right.
even if
And if
something
you
looks
bring
the
that
same,
into your
it's
davening,
not.
right. Then and
It's
since
so
davening
cool.
is creating a reality, as opposed to just interacting with the reality, it has that powerful component. All right, this was fun, guys. We'll do this again. I hope everybody watching has
Thank
enjoyed
you.
this.
Hi.
And
I'm
Yes,
gonna go
thank
on
you.
the
Thank you so
opening
much.
again. Bye.
all right, bye.
Thank you so much, Rabbi
Thank
Herman.
you.